ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the San Francisco Playhouse. I am appearing in the beautiful New York City and telegraphing across the country to most of our listeners and watchers who are in California. I'd like to take just a second to acknowledge that the land on which our theater sits, but not where I am, is actually on Ohlone land, California, and we'd like to just take a moment to acknowledge the Ohlone of the past, present, and future, and the land on which they lived. And we'd also like to thank them for the wonderful squiring of the land and hope that we, in our way, can live up to their examples set by them about how to care for the land. Welcome to our Zoomlet series. This is our third. We did one during the pandemic when we weren't doing anything else. That ran most of the summer. And then we did one again in the winter. This is our fall Zoomlet series, and it's four plays, and I hope some of you have seen them. For those of you who've never been to a Zoom, it's basically a 1-hour television show. And basically we take like a 10-minute play and we act like it is the very first read. I'm the artistic director of San Francisco Playhouse, and my job basically is to pick a play and to pick the director. That's it. Basically, that's my job. And then the director picks the cast and assembles a group of designers and comes up with a concept and marshals an entire production. So we're just going to stick to the part where the director picks the cast. This one is a little different than although we've done a few of them. We've mostly focused on very, very short plays. However, I thought when we were starting out to do this that I might not be able to find enough 10-minute plays to fill. So I thought, well, why don't we do a very small portion of a full-length play, and particularly focus talking to the director that's going to be coming on about this, using plays that have been scenes from great plays that have been very difficult to pull off for one reason or another, problematic. We did something from Oedipus Rex. We did something from the Bacchae. And tonight, we're going to take you to a play by Anton Chekhov called Seagull. And we're going to do a very, very small piece of it. And I'm now going to introduce the director, Carrie Perloff.
Hi, Bill. Thank you. Thank you. I love doing these. Thank you for inviting us. Can I just dive in and tell them about what we're doing?
Yes.
So, and I have a wonderful company here to welcome. I asked Bill if it would be okay with him to work on this scene from the Seagull, because I've directed lots of Chekhov, and this play I've taught a lot, but I've never actually directed the Seagull. And I love it. And it's a really, for any mother of a son, this is one of the great, great scenes in drama and the most complicated. So I will just tell you briefly, if you don't know the play, The Seagull is Chekhov's first kind of mature play. He wrote it after Ivanov and the Wood Demon, but it's the first play that feels like what we would think of as Chekhovian in a sense. So it was written in 1895. So he's sort of moving away from kind of boulevard comedy into something very nuanced and character driven. Here are a couple things to know. Chekhov was a doctor by profession. There is a doctor in this play. There is often a medical person in Chekhov's plays, and he has the most acute sense of observation of almost any playwright I know because of his medical training. This is that you can sniff in this play, and I'll just tell you where it comes in the plot of the play, all the themes that are going to preoccupy Chekhov later on about what is the meaning of work, what is the meaning of existence, why do we destroy our climate? That was really a big one for him. What happens when outsiders come to a place where there are resident people and kind of upend their lives? Why are we always in love with people who are not in love with us? And how do we reconcile that lack of love? What is the difference between, true art? He was fascinated by the creative personality. What is the difference between sort of true art and pretension, or academic art, or cant? So lots of juicy stuff that Chekhov will work on for his short life. He died of TB when he was only 40 something, appear in this play. It's a 4-act play, and this is the top. The scene we're going to read is the top of the 3rd act. And here's what's happened. I'm going to introduce our actors to you so you can visualize them as I tell you the story. So this is Gretchen Eagle. Welcome, Gretchen, and Albert Rubio. And I'm going to tell you something about them in a minute. But first, you need to know that Gretchen, who is zooming in from Pennsylvania, and Albert, who is living in Seattle, but is actually in San Francisco this week, are mother and son. So Gretchen is playing Arkadina, who is a famous actress. She tours a lot. She wears fabulous clothes. She plays in kind of boulevard comedies. That's what we're led to, and melodrama, narrative plays with beginning, middle, and end, and plot. You know, she's interested in structure and plot. Her son wants to be a playwright, and as often is true, our children rebel against us, and her son is not interested in plotted drama or narrative or melodrama. He's interested in something much more surreal and experimental. It's a little bit based on Maeterlinck, if you know any of that, or sort of expressionist drama. And the beginning of the Seagull, he presents his play, and it is rather surreal and abstract. It has no characters in it. It's very poetic, and his mother makes fun of it. It stars his lover, or putative lover, the woman in whom he's in love, who's called Nina. And the play happens, and then everybody in the family kind of has a dialogue about it. And his uncle Dorn is at least kind to him, his mother less so. The other character in this play is Trigorin, who's a famous short story writer based on Turgenev. And Trigorin becomes the object of Nina's love. So this is heartbreaking to Kostya. He can't believe that his mother's boyfriend is now the object of Nina's affection. So by the end of Act 2, Kostya attempts to kill himself. Now, it doesn't seem to be a very robust attempt. He seems to have kind of grazed his temple. But anyway, it has been very upsetting to the household. And his mother has decided she can't understand what's the matter with him, even though she knows what's going on with Trigorin, and that they have to leave immediately. So the top of Act 3 comes, and they're packing to leave. And Masha, who's another character in the play who's in love with Kostya, says, okay, they just have to leave because we're all falling apart and we're all miserable. And finally, Arkadina's brother says, can't you just give him a little money? Like, give your son a little money, and then he won't be humiliated, and maybe he'll have a life. And she says, I'm not a banker, I'm an actress. And that's what's happened right before this scene. So she says, I don't know what's the matter with him. I love him, but he's impossible, and we're leaving. And then he comes to her with his bandage and asks if she would bandage him. And that's the setup for the scene. So I cast these two wonderful actors because Gretchen starred at ACT. Some of you will remember this in Arcadia. She played Hannah beautifully, and we had a wonderful time working together. And then she did a reading of Hapgood of Stoppard, and she's an amazing teacher, and she's taught a lot of Chekhov and worked on Chekhov. And I thought, she's living in London now, so I don't get her very often, but I thought that she would enjoy this. And Albert, I am very proud to say, is an MFA graduate from ACT, and I do want to say was taught by the late, great Melissa Smith, who ran our school for 25 years. So I would love to dedicate our little work on this today to Melissa, because she was a great teacher of Chekhov, and she loved Albert very much. So that's the setup. Okay, Bill?
Yeah.
Can we dive in? And we're going to mute you. And
are you ready to do you want to give them any instructions?
yes, I do.
Okay.
Okay, goodbye. I'm waving goodbye to you. Okay, so, and then you guys are going to be pinned so that everybody can watch you and not us. So this first time through, it's quite a short scene. Albert, yes, is going to put on a little bandage, and you can imagine it, because I know this is really hard on Zoom, but the scene, Gretchen and Albert, is quite Oedipal and erotic in a way. He adores you and hasn't been with you at all. I should say you only come visit in the summer. And so you're not together very much. And he wants to sort of slow things down for a minute before you leave and have some kind of intimate encounter. You, on the other hand, are really ready to get out.
Right.
You want to get your boyfriend away from that young actress before anything happens. So you start in the scene from very different places. And I would just say, hold on to what you want, be aware of what's going on around, and then see when you get sucked in. The other thing I would say, Gretchen and Albert, is it's really hard to have a close, intimate scene with your mother when she's an actress. So there are moments in this, and we'll play with this, Gretchen, where it does get a little melodramatic. She's an actress and she lets fly when she wants, and he knows that. But the main thing is he's really desperate, Albert, that Nina doesn't love him. And he'll do anything to try and solve that. And that's what he's looking for in this encounter with his mother, is can she help me solve my life? As mothers are asked to do. Okay, I may stop you halfway, or we'll finish and then we'll all talk and see where we come. Okay, have a wonderful time.
Great, thank you.
Mama, would you change my bandage for me? You're so good at it.
The doctor's late.
He said he'd come by 10 and it's already noon.
Sit down. You look like you're wearing a turban. Last night, a delivery boy in the kitchen, he asked what country you were from. Oh, look. It's almost healed. There's nothing left but a scratch. Now you won't go bang, bang again once I'm gone, will you?
No, Mama. I was crazy with despair. I guess I lost control for a minute. I won't do it again. Oh, you have magic hands. I remember one time a while back, you were still working at the State Theater. I was just a little kid. And there was a fight out in back of our building. Someone beat up one of the tenants, the laundry lady. Remember? He knocked her unconscious, and you took care of her and got medicine for her and washed her kids in the bathtub. Well, don't you remember?
No.
Well, there were two dancers living in the building. They used to stop by for coffee.
I remember them.
They were both so religious.
Religion.
Oh, these last few days, I've loved you the way I did when I was little. Totally. Tenderly. You're all I've got. Only there's that man. He always comes between us.
Simply don't understand him, Kostya. He is a very distinguished individual.
Maybe. He didn't act so distinguished when I tried to challenge him to a duel.
Hold on one second. I'm going to stop you here. And just, that's the sort of first beat that we've just sort of gone through. So I'm going to ask you to just think about one thing that's going to get us into this next section. And I want you to go back. It feels like, in the simplest terms, Albert, she is infantilizing you the way she always does, right? You're not going to go bang, bang again, right? Do whatever you can do to introduce your despair. So she's going to cover up her feelings and you're going to expose. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
You cannot bear being treated like a child anymore. And for you, Gretchen, that's how you cope with him. You can't face his despair. You don't know what to do with it. So I feel like there's more tension at the top of the scene if we go that way, right? Which is just do whatever you can do, even if it feels too much right now, Albert, to say to her, it was my despair talking. And do you remember this? Can we talk about our past? Can we talk about your beautiful hands? Can we talk about how much I love you? Can you treat me as an adult? And she pushes away until finally it comes up about Trigorin and they can actually argue. And that's a safer place to be. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Gretch, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'll give you more room to go. If you just, yeah. Okay, I'm gonna go, we're gonna start from the bandaging again. You don't have to do the turban if you don't want.
Mama, will you change my bandage for me? You're so good at it.
The doctor's late.
He said he'd come by 10 and it's already noon.
Sit down. You look like you're wearing a turban. Last night, a delivery boy in the kitchen, he asked what country you were from. Oh, look, it's almost healed. There's nothing left but a scratch. Mwah. Now you won't go bang, bang again, will you, once I'm gone?
No, Mama. I was crazy with despair. I guess I lost control for a minute. I won't do it again. You have magic hands. Remember one time a while back, you were still working at the State Theater? I was just a little kid and there was a fight out in back of our building. Someone beat up one of the tenants, the laundry lady, remember? You knocked her unconscious and you took care of her and got medicine for her and washed her kids in the bathtub. Well, don't you remember?
No.
Well, there were two dancers living in the building and they used to stop by for coffee.
I remember them.
They were both so religious. The last few days, I've loved you the way I did when I was little. Totally. Tenderly. You're all I've got. Only there's that man. He always comes between us.
You simply don't understand him, Kostya. He is a very distinguished individual.
Maybe. And he didn't act so distinguished when I tried to challenge him to a duel. He's leaving, running away.
Don't talk nonsense. He's leaving because I'm taking him. I know you're not happy about our relationship, but you're an intelligent young man, and I have a right to expect you to respect my choice.
Well, I do respect your choice, but you have to respect mine. And I choose to act toward that man the way that I want. Some distinguished individual. Here we are, almost quarreling over him, and he's out in the garden laughing at both of us, twisting Nina's mind, trying to convince her he's a genius.
You love to annoy me, don't you? I respect that man, and I must ask you not to say nasty things about him in my presence.
Well, I don't respect him. You want me to treat him like a genius? Well, excuse me. I can't lie.
Oh.
His writing makes me sick.
Well, that's just envy. People with no talent, but lots of pretensions. All they know how to do is attack anyone with real talent. Why? Does it make you feel better?
Real talent? I have more talent than all of you put together.
Oh.
You and all of your tired old friends of yours. You've taken over everything artistic. You think the only thing that's real and legitimate is your own work. Anybody different, you try to shut them up and get rid of them. I don't respect any of you. I don't respect you, and I don't respect him.
You symbolist.
You can just go back to your precious theater and act in those cheap second-rate plays.
I have never acted in anything second-rate. Get away from me. You wouldn't even know how to begin to write a third-rate play. You're from Kiev. You're from Kiev, and you're middle class, you sponge.
Miser.
You amateur. You nobody. Stop crying. There's no need to cry. You mustn't. Oh, my poor baby, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. I'm such an awful mother.
If only you knew. I've got nothing. Nothing left. She doesn't love me, and I can't write anymore. All my hopes are gone.
You mustn't lose hope. Things will work out. I'm taking him away from here today. She'll be in love with you again. There, that's enough. That's enough. We're not mad at each other anymore, are we?
No, Mama.
No. Go tell him that you're not mad at him, won't you? And you won't have to fight a duel. I mean, you don't need to, really, do you?
No.
No.
Only, Mama, please, don't make me go talk to him. I couldn't. It's just too painful. Oh, here he comes. I'll just go. The doctor can fix the bandage.
Oh, what a heartbreak. Fantastic. Isn't that a great scene? Okay, what did it feel like? What did you find?
It's like there's so many little there's so much movement that happens so quickly, and it's like from here to here, and it's like 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, and it's so tough to find that connection inside. And so I feel like kind of like here right now.
Yeah, I feel the same. I feel like it's when there's a scene that's this much of a roller coaster, it's always hard when you first start doing it. And I think it begins, so it feels like I'm turning in this direction, and now I'm turning in this direction, and now I'm turning in this direction, and you're sort of behind you're behind it. Whereas, when you rehearsed it 100 times, then you're like riding on top of the wave, and it actually gets to a place where all those changes feel quite natural and human. But right now it's still like, wait, what's happening now?
I loved it that you surprised me a lot. And Gretchen, when you were most hostile to him, nobody, and then you started to cry yourself because it was just such an awful thing to say. And I think these things do turn, upside down constantly. I mean, it is shocking. I think they're surprised at where they end up.
Yeah.
And so I think one of the things to think about, is where the vulnerability leaches out, or where they actually hear it in the other one, and where they don't and miss it. There's a famous thing that Chekhov said: people merely dine, but as they dine, their lives are being made and their lives are being smashed. And sometimes you don't even know when you're smashing somebody's life. You say something offhand, or you're not thinking, or you're absorbed in your own despair. And it's, so it's an interesting question. I'm going to throw out a couple of things for you to think about, and then you tell me what you make of it. I think for you, Arkadina, the baseline, I mean, you love him so much. That has to be the kind of, you can only be that cruel to somebody that you adore. And you feel very wounded by him. And it's awful as a parent to feel disapproved of by your child. I think that's really the worst feeling there is in the world, when your child disapproves of you. And he has said to you, I think you're a phony actress and I don't like your boyfriend, and that is incredibly upsetting to you. And it wouldn't be if you didn't love him so much. So you started to really find, Gretchen, those places where you were vulnerable about that. Like, I really saw it when you said, I have a right, at the top of 141, I have a right to expect you to respect my choice. Mm-hmm. Make sure the need stays really high.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I have a right for you to like the man I'm with. I'm your mother. I want you to like him, Yeah. And the reason I say that is, Albert, if you feel her vulnerability there, that is a place you can capitalize on it. You can be cruel there. You see that she is aware of the fact that she's in love with the younger man who's not very reliable. She knows he's toying around with Nina. it is cruel of you, but satisfying, Kostya, right? To be mean about Trigorin because you know it will wound her. And in a certain way, you want to wound her. So where you see her vulnerability, you could press your advantage. Do you know? Does that make sense? And see if it works. I don't respect him, and then she tells you it's just envy. It's so cruel. And she says something which I don't believe she means, but it's truly an awful thing to say to your child when she says people with no talent, but lots of pretensions. All they know how to do is attack anyone with real talent. I think that really lands on you, Kostya. And so I would say to you that as much as you want to fight back, see what happens if your goal is not just to hurt her, but to try to glean her respect. Get her to respect you as a writer. When you say real talent, I have more talent than all of you put together, you and those tired friends of yours, it sounds really cruel, but I'm curious if you could try to invite her to admire you, to take you seriously. So there's a positive action to be played. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
So that we don't just end up, one of the traps in this scene is that ends up just being like this. And so I'm looking for the places where the need and the love and the desire to be recognized are as great. And I just thought it was beautiful, Gretchen, when out of cruelty, you were in despair that you'd wounded him. Do anything you can, do to save that, including really beating up on yourself. I'm such an awful mother. And then, Albert, I would say, see what happens at the bottom of that page if you really release and confess. She doesn't love me. It's so vulnerable, but it's the thing you can say to your mother that you kind of couldn't say to anybody else in the world. If only you knew. That is a refrain, of course, that Chekhov uses all the time. End of Uncle Vanya, if only you knew, end of Three Sisters. I've got nothing. So take your time with that. I've got nothing, that she doesn't love me. I can't write anymore. Because in fact, that's what the whole scene's about. You don't hate your mother. You're in despair about your girlfriend, your lover, and you want your mother to help you and to recognize your talent, And then I think there's a little conspiracy at the end between them, or that's a thing to try. Like that they come together and she says, you're not really going to press charges, are you? You're not going to fight a duel, are you? He's like, no, just let me get out of here before. So somehow the two of them come together in a sort of conspiratorial way.
Conspiracy. Okay, cool. Yeah.
I mean, these are just thoughts.
Yeah, I like that idea. There's like a certain lawyerly element to her, I'm noticing. It's sort of in the beginning also, even the sort of, I have a right to expect you to respect my choice. It feels almost like she's in a court of law, like she's playing some sort of legal scene from Law and Order or something, like she's playing one of her lawyer roles. And she's like, I have a right.
Right.
And then like, now we're going to come together and we're going to figure out how to, yeah.
But it's because the thing you are most vulnerable to, and I would say in this read through, just let the vulnerability come out, is the terror of growing old, the terror of being left behind, the terror that your young lover will lose interest or has lost interest in you, that you are not a great actress, and that somehow the whole house of cards that you have built is going to come down. That's what she's scared of. And sometimes we see that vulnerability and sometimes it turns into aggression or cruelty. But I think it's one of the geniuses of Chekhov that we're not allowed to judge any of them, because just when we think they're being so awful, we see that their own hearts are broken.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. Yeah. It was fun too that you had we got the sense that you could enjoy each other at times, both of you, that you used to have fun together.
Yeah.
And I think you probably did.
I don't know if you felt anything there, Albert, but I had this sort of memory, this like image flash into my mind about these ballerinas that we used to make fun of them or something,
Yeah.
and their religiousness or so. I don't know. I just had this like
ballerinas.
yeah.
Like, yeah, I think like something that clicked with what Carrie, what you were saying was like, I think Kostya really just wants to be seen, like the whole play. And I think there's moments, I think that ballerina is one of the moments where I think he feels seen there.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Because they have that shared memory of how they were amused by these crazy ladies who came to visit and drank tea in their tutus or whatever. I think that's a beautiful way to put it, Albert, that you don't feel seen by her. She judges you. She thinks you're without talent. She didn't like your play. She doesn't give you money, as she puts you down. And it's very hard for you to see that the reason she does that is that she's so scared herself. You know, to you, she's this beautiful, successful actress. What would it take for her to give you a crumb? Just a crumb to say, maybe you have a little talent. What do you guys think about the moment where you tell him he's from Kiev? Like, it's not his fault he's from Kiev.
It's your fault, Mom.
It's just a stop on the tour. Listen.
Yeah. That's how I always read it. It's like a stop on it's the Ukraine, you know, it's like a stop on it's just such a funny line because what can he do about it? That's where he's from.
Yeah. And I also wonder about, I don't know, you know, I guess we talk further going forward about, you know, who his father is and what that kind of, what the class is of his father's family and stuff. And maybe I use that sometimes to, you know, like maybe I consider his father from a much lower class or something. And I use that sometimes to say your stock isn't very good or you're, you know, so I think maybe that's one of those moments. I don't know, that you're from Kiev, meaning like your people are from Kiev, not my side of the family, but like, or something. I don't know.
Yes. And you know what she says, and I forgive me that I didn't say to the audience that this is Paul Schmidt's beautiful translation. We commissioned a lot of these at ACT, and he was a Russian scholar and an actor. So I think it's a really lovely translation. And he says she says you're middle class, not your working class. He's not a peasant. I think it's even worse. I mean, I wonder, you know, when I reread it, I thought it probably wasn't an actor. It was probably a businessman or something even more boring, somebody that she does not consider.
Right.
You know, there is a thing in this play, a valorization of the intelligentsia. This is what Chekhov always writes about the gentry, because they're the ones that read and think and go to the theater, you know, and whatever. And middle-class people who just are, you know, tradespeople or business people or make a living or maybe doctors, God forbid, or lawyers are not as interesting, or they don't have sensitivity. Like,
yes, I see. So they have to, like when she says you sponge right after that, like people like that have to sponge off of us, the artists,
off your creative
people in the
exactly.
world. Right.
So just remember, I know it's horrible, but there's wonderful co-option of creativity. Like who's the most creative, you know, and in a theatrical family, that can get complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's because the line, as I say, right before the scene starts, that's so brilliant, is Arkadina saying, I don't have any money. I'm an actress, not a banker. You know.
Yeah.
Right. So
so it's not about money. Money's almost like sort of gauche.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
You know. And when she leaves, she gives the whole group 1 ruble and says, share it with all of you. You know, that's her. She's really cheap. Okay, so great. Let's dive in and play with it from the top.
Okay. Just give me 1 second, Albert, if you don't mind. I'm just going to look at my notes here. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
Mama? Would you change my bandage for me? You're so good at it.
Doctor's late.
You said he'd come by 10 and it's already noon.
Sit down. Oh. You look like you're wearing a turban. Last night a delivery boy in the kitchen, he asked what country you were from. Oh, look, it's almost healed. Nothing left but a scratch. Mwah. Now you won't go bang, bang again, will you, once I'm gone?
No, Mama. I was crazy with despair. I guess I lost control for a minute. I won't do it again. You have magic hands. I remember one time a while back, you were still working at the State Theater. I was just a little kid, and there was a fight out in back of our building. Someone beat up one of the tenants, the laundry lady. Remember? He knocked her unconscious. You took care of her and got medicine for her and washed her kids in the bathtub. Don't you remember?
No.
There were 2 dancers living in the building. Stopped by for coffee.
I remember them.
Yeah, they were both so religious. These last few days, I've loved you the way I did when I was little. Totally. Tenderly. You're all I've got. Only there's that man. He always comes between us.
You simply don't understand him, Kostya. He's a very distinguished individual.
Maybe. Only he didn't act so distinguished when I tried to challenge him to a duel. He's leaving, running away.
Oh, don't talk nonsense. He's leaving because I'm taking him. I know you're not happy about our relationship, but you're an intelligent young man, and I have a right to expect you to respect my choice.
I do respect your choice, but you have to respect mine, and I choose to act toward that man the way I want. Some distinguished individual. Here we are, almost quarreling over him, and he's out in the garden laughing at both of us, twisting Nina's mind, trying to convince her he's a genius.
You love to annoy me, don't you? Oh, I respect that man, and I must ask you not to say nasty things about him in my presence.
Well, I don't respect him.
Okay, I'm going to stop you for one sec because I heard something interesting. Kostya, that you said, here we are almost quarreling over him. So let's see, I'm going to make one more adjustment and let's see if we can hold off on the quarrel erupting. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that we don't fight quite so fast. And so, Kostya, again, I do respect your choice, but you have to respect mine. See if you can take another tack there that invites her to see the world the way you do, or maybe it's conspiratorial that Mama, we're here sitting here talking to each other. He's out there laughing at us. That might make it be even worse for her to realize you're trying to be nice to her by saying, I think you should wake up and smell the coffee. Maybe he doesn't really.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a way in.
Yeah.
Just to see if we don't get to the boil quite so quickly. Yeah. And I had another thought from what you just did, Gretchen, because you guys are so good. It gives me a million ideas. So I'm going to ask you to do it one more time from the top with one more thought. That you started to see if you can start when he invites you to bandage him from a less dismissive place, but you started to actually think, oh, good, I could do this. I could look after him. This would control my anxieties and maybe we could have a nice time. And then he'll drop his anxiety about Trigorin. See what happens if there's less fear about what's going to happen in the beginning, and you invite that activity more readily.
Yeah, gotcha.
That might be fun. Then in other words, you're going to walk into a trap.
Yeah. And I invite the activity more readily because it's I mean, I just want to leave, and maybe this is like actually the easiest way to say goodbye. It's like,
Yes.
oh, good, then I can think of myself as a good mother because I will have done this bandage thing. That's
Exactly.
actually
And you're
perfect.
good at it.
Then I'll
You're
leave.
good at it. You're
Yeah.
really good at caretaking. And this will be a lovely, intimate moment, and it will end happily.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay, I'm getting off.
Okay.
From the top. Okay, cool. Mama, would you change my bandage for me? You're so good at it.
The doctor's late.
Well, he said he'd come by 10, and it's already noon.
Sit down. You look like you're wearing a turban. Last night, a delivery boy in the kitchen, he asked what country you were from. Oh, look, it's almost healed. Nothing left but a scratch. Mwah. Now, you won't go bang bang again, will you, once I'm gone?
No, Mama. I was crazy with despair. I guess I lost control for a minute. I won't do it again. You have magic hands. I remember one time a while back, you were still working at the State Theater. I was just a little kid, and there was a fight out in back of our building. Someone beat up one of the tenants, the laundry lady, remember? He knocked her unconscious, and you took care of her and got medicine for her and washed her kids in the bathtub. But don't you remember?
No.
Well, there were 2 dancers living in our building, and they used to stop by for coffee.
I remember them.
They were both so religious. These last few days, I've loved you the way I did when I was little. Totally. Tenderly. You're all I've got. Only there's that man. He always comes between us.
You simply don't understand him, Kostya. He's a very distinguished individual.
Maybe. Only he didn't act so distinguished when I tried to challenge him to a duel. He's leaving, running away.
Oh, don't talk nonsense. He's leaving because I'm taking him. I know you're not happy about our relationship, but you're an intelligent young man, and I have a right to expect you to respect my choice.
I do respect your choice, but you have to respect mine. And I choose to act toward that man the way I want. Some distinguished individual. Here we are, almost quarreling over him, and he's out there in the garden laughing at both of us, twisting Nina's mind, trying to convince her he's a genius.
Oh, you love to annoy me, don't you? I respect that man, and I must ask you not to say nasty things about him in my presence.
Well, I don't respect him. You want me to treat him like a genius? Well, excuse me, I can't lie. His writing makes me sick.
Well, that's just envy. People with no talent but lots of pretensions, all they know how to do is attack anyone with real talent. Why? Does it make you feel better?
Real talent? Well, I have more talent than all of you put together. You and all those tired old friends of yours. You've taken over everything artistic. You think the only thing that's real and legitimate is your own work. Anybody different, you try to shut them up and get rid of them. I don't respect any of you. I don't respect you, and I don't respect him.
You symbolist.
And you can just go back to your precious theater and act in those cheap second-rate plays.
I have never acted in anything second-rate. Just get away from me. You wouldn't even know how to begin to write a third-rate play. You're from Kiev. You're from Kiev, and you're middle class, you sponge.
Miser?
You amateur. You nobody. Stop crying. There's no need to cry. You mustn't. Oh, my poor baby, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. I'm such an awful mother.
If only you knew. I've got nothing left. She doesn't love me. And I can't write anymore. All my hopes are gone.
You mustn't lose hope. Things will work out. I'm taking him away from here today. She'll be in love with you again. There. That's enough. We're not mad at each other anymore, are we?
No, Mama.
Go tell him you're not mad at him, won't you? You don't have to fight a duel. You don't really, do you?
No. Mama, please don't make me go talk to him. I couldn't. It's just too painful. Here he comes. I'll just go. The doctor can fix the bandage.
I'm sorry. Whew, that was a real roller coaster ride. Wow. It's interesting I don't know what it felt like to you. It seemed to me the longer you don't let it erupt, you start to hear things that are even more painful.
Yeah.
You know?
I liked that. That felt really nice, that sort of holding back, because it feels like a rubber band, kind of like you're holding it back. And then when those kind of really shockingly insulting things come out, it feels much more as a response to having held it in, as opposed to like generating it. You know what I mean? It's like actually it just comes from this kind of holding in. Which felt right.
Yeah. Can we do one more, like just 2 minutes? I think we have time.
Yeah.
I felt we got ahead of the insults. And, I've just been working on Godot. And so I keep thinking symbolist, anarchist, architect, it's somehow, Beckett must have read this. But anyway, Albert, don't anticipate symbolist. I know it doesn't sound like a terrible thing. But when you say to her at the middle of 141, at the end of the scene, I don't respect any of you. I don't respect you and I don't respect him. Take that in, Gretchen. And then you say to him, you, and there's an ellipsis, like she's reaching for the word. You, what is the word? Symbolist, right? And that is like the worst thing you can say to him.
Yeah.
So I think you have to hear that, Albert. I don't know that you think being a symbolist is the worst thing in the world. Maybe you claim it. But the fact that she attacks you with that, right? Just let it land, the blow, before you say, because when you realize she's pissed then, and you can just go back. If you're a symbolist, she works in cheap second-rate plays. I have never worked. So each insult it just gets worse and worse. Like you say things to each other. That you never intend to say. And when he calls you a miser and then you call him an amateur, it's just, So let's not get general with those. Just let each of them be the weapon they are. And if you would, just for now, let it land before you respond.
Yeah.
You never quite talk to each other this way.
Yeah. So for the purposes of this time through, if you want to are we just taking that section?
Yeah, just that section.
Just that section. Is it okay sort of to like take a little more time than
take it? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
obviously,
great. Okay, cool.
When we get it up to speed in 3 weeks of rehearsal, we would be moving. But I'd love you to just let these things land as if for the first time. So they're really blows. It's like you're hitting each other. And it would start with you saying to him, that's just envy, people with no talent.
Yeah.
Albert, just let that hit you when she says, attack anyone with real talent. Real talent. I was just unbelievable that she would say that to you. So let those things land. Take your time. Okay.
Okay. You want to start from, well, I don't respect him?
I want to start from her. Yeah, sure. Well, I don't respect him. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I don't respect him. You want me to treat him like a genius? Well, excuse me. I can't lie. His writing makes me sick.
That's just envy. People with no talent, but lots of pretensions, all they know how to do is attack anyone with real talent. Why? Does it make you feel better?
Real talent. I have more talent than all of you put together. You and those tired old friends of yours. You've taken over everything artistic. You think the only thing that's real and legitimate is your own work. Anybody different, you try to shut them up and get rid of them. I don't respect any of you. I don't respect you, and I don't respect him.
You symbolist.
And you can just go back to your precious theater and act in those cheap second-rate plays.
I have never acted in anything second rate. Get away from me. You wouldn't even know how to begin to write a third-rate play. You're from Kiev. You're from Kiev, and you're middle class. You sponge.
Miser.
You amateur. You nobody. Stop crying. There's no need to cry. You mustn't. Oh, my poor baby. I'm so sorry. Oh, please forgive me. I'm such an awful mother.
If only you knew. I've got nothing. Nothing left. She doesn't love me. And I can't write anymore. All my hopes are gone.
You mustn't lose hope. Things will work out. I'm taking him away from here today. She'll be in love with you again. There, that's enough. And we're not mad at each other anymore, are we?
No.
No, go tell him that you're not mad at him, won't you? You don't have to fight a duel. You don't, really, do you?
No. Only Mama, please. Don't make me go talk to him. I couldn't, it's just too painful. Oh, here he comes. I'll just go. The doctor can fix the bandage.
Oh, yes. Beautiful. What's so funny is the more painful it gets, the funnier it is. Because in a way, I know that's awful to say, but they're so alike. I mean, that's what's so brilliant about the writing, and you just don't know how he does it. But I mean, in a way, they're equally narcissistic and self-involved and in love with the wrong person and all of that. And so I just really felt that this time, how related you were.
It's so helpful to just take that time to feel every single one of those things. I had no idea how much Miser would affect her.
Right?
That's hard.
So insulting as a parent. You know, you're doing the best you can and he calls you a miser, but of course it's true. Otherwise, you know. Hi, Bill. Thoughts?
Oh, it's just terrific. It's terrific. I just am perpetually reminded every time I run afoul of Chekhov how utterly bottomless it is, you know,
Yeah.
and how much more is going on. You know, it's
Yeah.
like
So
it's no we think of it almost as a cliche that the Moscow Art Theater would work for a year on a play like this.
You know, I think
And they get, you know, they knew each other and they would
yes.
just dig deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, you know. It's beautiful.
And it's I think what you started to find in here that is such a gift. It's why it's like the best workout, to go back to Chekhov, is that you can't ever nobody's right or wrong. I guess that's what it is. You know, we're so used to a kind of tendentious drama today where you know whose side everybody's on and you know who the good people are and you know who not. And what you realize in Chekhov, and I think it does come from him being a doctor and sort of really seeing humanity at its best and its worst, is everybody's doing the best they can and they're doing the worst they can. You know, they're just peddling as best as they can. And you can love someone very much and be incredibly cruel to them, you know, but we can't judge her. Is she a terrible mother? Probably. Is she doing the best she can? At least she works. What does he do? He sits around and whatever, but is he, you know, trying to make something serious? Probably. Does he really love Nina? Yes. So, you know, all those things are true. And I think it's why, Bill, you can keep digging, because Chekhov doesn't box them in ever. He doesn't judge them and say, you know, this is the heroine of the play and this is the villain.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
even Trigorin you feel for in some way.
You know, something I always like to do to sum these up, or just to give us a sort of a kicking off point to what the audience can imagine the next rehearsal would be like.
Yeah.
It's just to very quickly, all three of you, just what would be the next thing you would want to work on? Like at the next, what are you going away thinking? Oh gosh, now I want to try to get that. What would that be? Let's start with the actors. Gretchen?
I think if like it being a first rehearsal, I think the main thing would be, so you can do a certain amount of your work leading up to that time. But then once I'm acting with Albert and sort of like receiving all of the amazing nuance and vulnerability and the lovely like things that he's giving, it informs me so much about the relationship, then just of who that actor is, that informs me so much about my character as well. And so I sort of have to go off and kind of think about, oh, that's my son, you know, oh, that's who she raised, as opposed to like this imaginary person in my head when I read the play. So I think that would sort of just give me a lot to think about and work on the relationship or something.
That's a lovely thing to say. Albert?
Yeah. This last little bit, Gretchen had this great moment where she like lifted hope, don't lose hope. And it really like made me want to go like, oh, so what, like, I think next for me, I would want to really feel what the dichotomy is between that despair and the hope. Like, and that's a huge thing in Chekhov, I think too. Like there's always that hope and they're like always trying to keep that hope, but this like other thing is all just as equally there, and it's just this like pull with these characters. Yeah.
Totally.
Carrie, what is the next note you would give them? Or
You know, I would love to work
another
I mean, I would love to work the scene physically, because I think that would form so much. I mean, she is incredibly tender to him. He remembers that. He remembers her bandaging him or holding him, or, you know, and sometimes you can say one thing but feel another thing from your mother or from your child. And so I think it's also, they're very possessive of each other. He's possessive of her. He doesn't want her to love someone else. He wants to be the loved one, you know, in that sense. And so I'd love to play with what the scene feels like physically. And also, I think what Albert said, you know, the hope. My last note to Gretchen would have been in this one, when she says, you don't have to find a duel. You don't really, do you? Is to make that real question.
Oh, nice.
That was a great moment.
If
was
that's a
amazing.
real question, then
Yeah.
to keep the balls in the air about, is this play going to now be about the antipathy between those two men, or is that going to dissipate and something else is going to happen? Because, people say nothing happens in Chekhov, but everything happens. And I always like to figure out how can you help keep the balls in the air so the audience doesn't really know what's going to happen.
Yeah, well, that's definitely, I'm looking forward to that next rehearsal.
We can all go off and have it in our imaginations.
Thank you, Bill, for letting
Anyway.
us play with it. It's so
So much fun.
pleasure.
Such a pleasure.
It's a gift.
And thank you all at home for tuning in to our Zoomlet series and to the Classics Reclassified portion of it, which is what Gary and I have been working on together. And we'll continue to kind of, every once in a while, we'll dive into some hoary classic and find that it is
Not hoary.
just the best writing in the world. Yeah. I think, the Seagull.
I think you should let your audience-
Oh my God. It is
Bill,
the
I think
greatest
you
play
should
ever
let
written.
your audience vote for the classic scenes that they want to watch down the road.
Well, that's a great idea. Everybody should just write me about what classic play they would like to see us tackle
Or a scene.
in our next Classics Reclassified. And also, so thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you all of you who made a donation with your free ticket. Deeply appreciated, because we are paying all the artists. And also, we want to just remind you to make sure you see The Great Con, which is playing in our theater right now, live, in our live theater, where we have returned and where we're like super grateful to be seeing so many people coming back to the theater. Thank you very much for tuning into the Zoomlet series, and we'll see you soon at the theater. Good night.
Okay, good night. Thank you, team.
Good night. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Right, you're in the clear.